Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Corey, better known as the C-Man, and I want to welcome you to another edition of the C-Man's Cinema Sit-Down. So, got done with work yesterday, and, I'm not in this seat a lot. I feel like I say that every time I'm in this seat, because it's always a large gap. Most of my stuff is right out of the theater, or over on the couch when I'm watching things in real time, and I've just been on a run where recently I've been doing a lot of that and a lot of that type of editing and less of like the normal review stuff. And I was thinking about a show that I missed because it came out right in the last 2 episodes of Obi-Wan Kenobi. The Boys was going on. I was very busy and it wasn't like on the top of my priority list. But then I heard really, really good things and I became very intrigued, and it's been a while, didn't speed up the process, but yesterday I finally found some time after work where I was like, you know what, I just want to watch some TV for myself. The last 2 things I had been watching prior to that as like my non-records and the camera being off, had wrapped up, so I needed something new. So I threw this on yesterday, and I binged the entire thing, I got it like at 5:30, so from 5:30 to whenever I was done, I binged the whole thing, man. This is one of my favorite things that Disney Plus has done in the world of the MCU. And this is easily, I think, one of my favorite properties right now. The world they build, it's so much fun. What are we talking about? Why don't you pull up a chair? Take a seat. We are getting ready to dive in, spoiler free, into Miss Marvel. And I'm not kidding you when I tell you this is one of my favorite things that Marvel has done. The cast is so enjoyable. The action and the visual effects and all the stuff that goes into what we're physically looking at, the direction. There's a combination of 4 directors here. You got Adil and Bilal, the 2 guys that helmed the Batgirl movie that we're apparently never going to see, and Bad Boys for Life. Well, I tell you what, just going off what we know from Bad Boys for Life to what they did here in the first and last episodes, these guys are so freaking good, and it makes me want to see the Batgirl movie even more. I mean, it's just a tragic story, but Kevin Feige's going to take care of those guys. But same, Mira Menon and Charmin Obaid Chinoy, I think it's very important in a female-led series to have female directors as well as writers. And I think what you got from a direction standpoint, everything that we got visually in this show, I mean, there's some cool camera tricks. There's just it just visually tells the show so well, and like the way that they mix in the comic art into like the tail end of the credits, or even when Kamala is just doing things. Sometimes when she's thinking, you're getting sketches, and it's kind of got a little bit of Spider-Man into the Spider-Verse vibe, where like you're seeing kind of some of these things that she's imagining happening around her. All of that stuff just looked really, really phenomenal. Bisha K. Ali, who is our creator, and while only on 1 episode, has quite a large writer's room, but the writing in this show is phenomenal. The way it embraces the Pakistani culture, not just in Pakistan, but specifically in Jersey City, which is one of the most densely populated Pakistani areas in the state. I actually think it is the most densely populated. I want to say it's about 4,500 Pakistanis in Jersey City when I looked that up on Google the other day. So, like, leaning into all of that community, we also do go to actual Pakistan, and getting all of that culture just injected into the show is so vibrant, so wonderful. The handling of Kamala's story, I think, is wonderful. It's one of those that you knew they were going to change, like her origin a little bit. And that was one of the things where when it came out, when it did, I was like, oh man, they changed her origin. Like, I really love the visual of her super extended arms with the big fists and the elongated legs, and just the stretchy abilities that she has. I was a little bummed by that, but when I watched the show, couldn't care less, man. I mean, if anything, I honestly think the way they adapt that stuff almost works better. Like, the idea of giving her light-based powers, it's similar to the energy. I mean, it's different, but, like, it's at least in the same ballpark, right, of the energy powers that, Captain Marvel has. So visually, she looks a little bit closer to it. It allows them to do more with her, and she's able to do more things, and the build to like finally seeing what the comic accurate look to Kamala as Miss Marvel with the energy, like light powers that she has. Spot on, and it looked really, really cool. And how they twisted the adaptation from what used to be like going to Avengers Con, and the Terrigen Mist gets released there, and that's how she gets her powers. And knowing Feige wasn't going to go down the Terrigen route or the Inhuman route with what happened, with it already having been done, on the ABC shows with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., like, it just, the more I watched, the more I was like, this all makes a lot of sense, and it works really, really well, and I think Ali and her whole team do an excellent job. And then, I mean, like, I found myself throughout the course of the entire show just really loving all the elements of the story. Like, Miss Marvel's origin is wonderful. Kamala's story is wonderful. Kamala's family story is wonderful. I love her family. Her family is phenomenal. We're going to talk about everybody when we get to the characters, but, like, that stuff is fantastic. Her mosque family and her Pakistani community is really wonderful, but also watching how that community mixes into Jersey City and is, embracing of its entire community. The show kind of really leans into the idea of the community in Jersey City and what it means to that group of people. There's some really cool stuff down the stretch, the backstretch of the show with that. But it's like one of those things where it's just so cool to see, like, my backyard showing off all this stuff that I'm so unfamiliar with. And you guys know, I've seen my story a lot. And I love when you can see stories that tell things that I could never experience or know about. And that's the other thing that I love, is it's not just leaning into the Pakistani culture in Jersey City, but when you go back to Pakistan, I mean, there is an entire episode that's given to the partition when Muslim Indians were pushed out of India and into this area that became Pakistan, and leaning into the history of the culture and how tough it is. Like, there's a moment where I think it's Kamala's mom talks about, like, imagine, or maybe it's her nani, which is like, imagine that, like, you're Indian and then you're shunned away because, of British rule or whatever, and packed into this place that makes you Pakistani. And that divide that exists is just a trail of, like, blood and horrible, horrible things. And you have to kind of reconcile with all of that, right? Like, the way they dive into that stuff is phenomenal. And then the other thing that I really, really liked around the culture aspect is seeing a Muslim community that's so loving and embracing. I don't feel like we get that in media a lot. I think there was a really long stretch where every time you saw a Muslim in a movie or a television show, they were a terrorist. And then there was a stretch where, like, if they were not terrorists, you would usually see them being kind of combative. You know what I mean? Like, not willing to embrace stuff that's going on in the current world and the way culture is for the youth of their generation. You kind of see a lot of old school kind of stubbornness, and this community is so accepting, right? Leaning in and the idea of, while being respectful, to your religion and your culture, but embracing, like, hey, there's a youth here, lean into what the youth like. There is an interesting divide, obviously, with men and women in the Muslim culture, and watching how this show tackles that idea and seeing some progressive stuff there. Like, it was just really wonderful, where it was like every time you were seeing Muslim people or you were at the mosque, outside of when damage control would show up, it was all this positive, loving, wonderful energy that just made you feel good. And I loved that element of the show just as much as I loved the superhero content. The superhero content, like I said, is great. I really did love the adaptation of Kamala's origin. And so much of that has to do with Aman Vellani, who plays Kamala Khan. She is, man, just such a delight, man. And I watched the finale and recorded that, so I will put up that final reaction, because I felt that there were some big things coming in that episode, and then there were some big things coming. I've done a pretty good job, or did a pretty good job of avoiding spoilers, outside of, like, the stuff around the djinn. but yeah, like it was. I'm glad I recorded that one. So we'll put that out after this one. Eventually, those edits take me a while. But it was one of those where it was just like I said in that video that I feel a lot of similarities between Kamala and my little sister, just because of the way that like she doesn't really look or feel necessarily like a 16-year-old when you first meet her, and my sister is 17. I feel like that all the time with her, and I've always just figured it's like I can't get just my little sister out of my head, and there's a big age gap, so like I just like maybe I don't see it. But watching this, a lot of similar vibes, and they are a lot more mature and adult than you would think just on looking, and the spirit that they have, I think, is very in kinship, and a lot of stuff with Kamala's mom and dad. I also kind of vibe with my sister, so like I was just really vibing on what Vellani was doing from Kamala Khan's standpoint, as well as the Miss Marvel stuff, and it's a lot of fun to see a kid who is a fan of these heroes become a superhero, and the way that she is scared, confused, but also like, holy shit, I'm a superhero. Like her facial expressions early in the show and just throughout the whole thing are phenomenal. But the way that she carries herself, the way that she handles the action, as well as like the story stuff, like there's a lot going on for Kamala throughout the course of the series, and I think Vellani really handles all of it quite elegantly, and I am dying to see more of her. Like you get to the end of this show and you're like, I need that Miss Marvel, or I need the Marvels movie right now. She's so likable, and I think she really embraces the character in a way that feels honest and true, and it's more about Kamala in some sense than it is about Miss Marvel, which I really, really liked. And the stuff that's going on with Kamala, with her family and her community, and everything else that she's juggling besides becoming a superhero, I just think Vellani does a really, really wonderful job with it. And then the thing that I really love about this show is that they surround her with a phenomenal group. I mean, it starts with her friends, Matt Lintz as Bruno and Yasmin Fletcher as Nakia. Phenomenal. I really love both of them, and I love from both perspectives, right? Like, you have her homegirl, I think they're cousins, but like her best friend, obviously, with that female relationship. I love seeing all that stuff and things that play into Nakia's story. I really think Yasmin Fletcher does a wonderful job with. And that chemistry is really, really good. But then you get the flip side of the type of relationship she has where her other best friend is a guy. And what Matt Lintz does as Bruno. I mean, really, again, just really, really likable. He's charming. He's a computer science nerd, so like he's super smart. He creates something for the family early on that allows for a ton of hilarity. There's a lot. I didn't say this. There's a lot of humor in the show, as well as the drama and the action, and all of it's balanced and handled really, really well. But the humorous moments, specifically early on in the show, before you kind of start diving into Kamala's past and the history of where she comes from and what her story is, right? The key element is her focusing on her story. And when you kind of get into that stuff, it gets more serious toward the back end. But early on, man, the humor is phenomenal, and Matt Lintz really leans into that. I enjoy Bruno so much. And the arcs for both Bruno and Nakia, and seeing where they start to where they end, and how that plays into, the mosque story as well as Kamala's, and the, I guess, like, elements of, like, the things that Kamala's kind of looking into kind of cross paths with Bruno's part of friendship and story, and the way that all that's done, I just thought both of them were wonderful. Then maybe these might be my two favorite people in the entire show. But Kamala's Ami and Abu, her mom and dad, Muniba and Yasuf. Oh my dear God, I love this family so much, man. Zenobia Shroff, who plays Muniba, her mom, just, there's such a elegance to her performance and such a calming where it's like you really feel the motherly warmth that comes from her, and all of her intentions you can understand. in what she's doing. And again, it's one of these things where I think we're in a slightly more progressive home that's more accepting of a lot of the non-traditional things. And to see that, but then to see the way that she cares and why she kind of does some of the more traditional things that she does with Kamala, it's just really presented well from Shroff. And that relationship, like I said, I felt a lot of vibes between what I see with my little sister and my mom in that relationship, and it made it feel natural and genuine. And the chemistry between Shroff and Vellani it just does. It feels so natural, and when they're at odds or when they're looking, eye to eye on things, I loved all of it. And every time Ami is on screen, you're usually pretty happy, and I really did dig her family so much. And then Yusuf, Mohan Kapoor, fantastic, man. I mean, her Abu is so much fun. I love the energy and the spirit. Like, every time Kapoor is on screen, it's just filling you with positive, wonderful energy. I mean, there is something that he does for Kamala in the first episode that kind of plays into some of the tension, but in the moment, like when it's happening, oh my god, it makes you love her parents so much. And the love that you have for Abu in that moment is just, oh man, like, he's so fun and genuine, and the way that he looks at things, I really appreciated. Seeing how he handles himself as the male leader in the family, and someone that's well respected in his community. Like, you could have had a very hard nosed Abu, and seeing a soft, embracing Abu again, like, her whole family is just wonderful. It's the only way that you can really say it. Like, her family is absolutely wonderful, and that includes her brother Amir, played by Sagar Shaikh. Like, his quality and brotherly nature, again, super genuine, feels really, really true to form. You know what I mean? Like, as an older brother and someone who has a similar age gap to him and Kamala with my little sister, like, I respected a lot of his vibes. I loved where he came from. There's a moment early on where he just comes in and he's like, I got you. And she's like, really? He's like, come on, like, obviously I got you. And I loved that presence of Amir. And then part of Amir's story really allows us to dive into, some of the Pakistani culture and a particular event that's going on in the show. Just wonderful stuff surrounding him and his wife, Taisha, who's played by Trevina Springer. And that's one of the other things that I really like is, you're looking at, this Pakistani kid who is marrying someone who isn't Pakistani. Taisha is, black, and I believe she I think is African American, or at least certainly comes off like she's from the area. And again, it's that embracingness of the family. Like, that's an element that could have been, again, contentious in this series, and it's something that as a family is embraced, and it's part of that embracing of the entire community that I really dig with the show. And while there's not a ton to do for Taisha in it, she does have a couple really nice moments, and like I said, that element of the story and what's going on with them, just really wonderful stuff. Man, there's so many people in here. Sheikh Abdullah. He's one of my favorite people in the whole show, man. Anytime the Sheikh is on, just the genuine, loving nature of the character, and as somebody who's a figurehead in that community, what we get from Laith Nakli is just wonderful. He's, again, someone who just makes you smile every time he's on screen, and we get a lot of that from all of the different members of the community. There's a group of a lot of the older women or friends of parents that are women. They're maybe I'm wrong, but throughout the course of the show, it doesn't seem like these are all actual aunts, but they're called aunties, and they're the Illuminantes. Like, they're the Illuminati. They're the people that, like, spread all the gossip and rumors and stuff. All those elements are just really well executed by the cast. And then, tying into... there's an element around some of the cultural things in the Pakistani lore with jinn and how jinn play into this new adaptation of Kamala's story. There are I don't know a lot of Kamala's story. I know a little bit of her origin because of the video game. I dived into some of those comics. But the show's littered with all comic accurate characters, and then there's a group that are completely invented for this show because of how it ties into the new origin that we're giving Kamala. And this group, I just really think, does a wonderful job, led by this woman, Najma, Nimra Bucha, or Buka. She's great. She's got a very stern look to her, where, like, you could buy bad, but she has a really warm delivery that can let her play on the good end. And how they utilize her and the other jinn in the course of the show, I thought was really, really interesting. And like I said, I think Buka does a really good job in balancing what she's given, because she kind of plays in both areas. But I really enjoyed her quite a bit and what's going on in the story around the jinn, like how that ties into the new origin for Kamala. I really, really did like quite a bit. And then there is one other character. It's Najma's son, who's Kamran, played by Reese Shah, who is a key character, from what I understand, in the comics to Kamala's story. And what they do with Kamran, I really enjoyed. And Shah just has this natural charm. I mean, he's an Indian with a British accent. Like, it's just like everything that comes from him, you're just like, I love this guy. Like, the minute he opens his mouth, you're just like, I want to be his friend. And Shah just has this natural charm to him. And again, his character is someone who's a little muddied at times, and the way that he kind of plays in both worlds also really, really works. A lot of his physical acting, I thought, was really, really nice in that realm. And then there is one additional character, this kid Kareem, who plays Red Dagger, Aramis Knight. His whole stretch, he's got like a 2-episode arc kind of with Kamala that's really great. I love their relationship. I love their chemistry. Kamala has really phenomenal chemistry with all three main guys that are her age in the show, which creates some interesting moments. But the way they handle all of it is it's really well done. Like, nothing ever feels weird or not innocent. But there is definitely a vibe between her and each one of these guys, and I like the kind of slight differences to each of the relationships. But what you get from Knight as Red Dagger is great. I mean, comic accurate looking, really, I think, handles himself, and the type of character, again, someone who's super charming, but different than the other guys. And I really enjoyed him, as well as this character who kind of is like a I guess you would call him like a leader of the group that Kareem comes from, Waleed, who's played by Farhan Akhtar. I love this guy so much. When you see my finale reactions, I put my hair up in the Waleed style, man. He's one of those guys, as soon as he comes on screen, I'm just like, I love all of this. And what he's able to do with what he's given, I think, really goes quite a long way. And I know I'm talking about like 8 million people, but there's so many wonderful performances in this. But the last one that we'll talk about is Kamala's Nani, Sana, who's played by Samina Ahmed. She has a very integral role in the historical storytelling that we get in the show, and as well as the tie into what Kamala is and why Kamala has powers and everything that's going on there. And I really, again, love the sincereness to the performance, and that the chemistry with Villani is very good, and again, very natural. And the relationship between Kamala, her Ami, and her Nani, and the relationship between Ami and Nani on its own, like all three of those women and how they interact and what their relationships are, is really, really well executed stuff. And again, that's the thing I love about this show, is that it's not just about the superhero stuff. It's almost more about Kamala and her family and where she comes from and that part of her story. And all of these people that we talked about really enhance all of that in ways that the show is just so freaking enjoyable, and it's fun and it's funny and it's dramatic. I mean, I was crying the last 2 episodes, man. Like, there's some really, really wonderful emotional family beats, and as we know, I'm going through some stuff with my family, and just seeing, they're not sad tears, they're happy tears, like seeing the stuff that's going on with that family is really heartwarming, and how that plays into the story is just stuff that I love. So let's get the Sea Maniacs up. Look, like I said, top to bottom, everything in this show is phenomenal. The direction you get, led by Adil and Bilal, phenomenal stuff. I love the camera work, choreography, and the setup for the action sequences, and just the world that they build. Bisha K. Ali and her writing team, like, you tweaked an origin and made it stronger, I think, than what it is in the comics, or at least stronger for the world that we're playing in the MCU. And not only just being able to adapt that, but to adapt the culture and, Kamala's community that she comes from, and how all of them get to play roles. Like, I'm telling that you're gonna remember some of the small characters, and it's really wonderful to see how all of that gets fleshed out, is given time. One of the things I really like about the show, every episode is over 42 minutes long, and there are a couple that push like the high 40s. It gave itself time. It didn't rush through anything. It all felt wonderful and built correctly. And when you have that to give to your cast, and a cast that's just as enjoyable as this one is, led by the wonderful Aman Vellani, who plays Kamala Khan, this thing is superb start to finish. It is now in my top 3 when it comes to the MCU television world. And I mean, I can't take Loki out. I love Hiddleston too much, and as a writer and a dialogue kid, that show does all the things I love. WandaVision's still probably the most inventive piece of television I've watched in the last decade, and Miss Marvel in at 3. I think it's one of the best things that Marvel has done it might be the best thing that they've done on the television spectrum as far as like just classic traditional Marvel stuff. And there is a really awesome thing about watching a kid become a superhero, and I think Vellani carries that really well. And when all of it gets put together, it's no doubter, slam dunk, 5 out of 5 season for the Seaman. Not every episode would be a 5, but I would say at least 4 of them would be, without like doing it in real time. Like, I'd say at least 4 of them probably would have been 5s, because like everything this show does, I mean, is just so well executed. The origin story, the finale to what's going on, the going into the partition stuff, how they handled that sequence, like, unbelievable stuff. And then there's just a really good, the whole India stretch, which is like 2 episodes in itself, is just, it's magnetic, man. Like, this show, what a gem. I'm pissed I didn't watch this in real time with you guys, but there you go, man. Those are all the Seaman's thoughts on Miss Marvel. Really, it's one of those things I talk about all the time, but when you're talking about representation, diversifying what you see on screen, this is like the blueprint, man. Nothing is forced. It's all natural. And as someone who doesn't come from this culture or this community, it was just fascinating and beautiful to see the culture leaned into and on display. Like, it's one of those things where it's like, you look at something like Moon Knight, where I like the cultural elements that were dropped in there, but it felt like you could have leaned in more. This is, if you're gonna dive in and want to lean into the culture stuff, do it the way Miss Marvel does it. This is the blueprint, man, because this is just pure, beautiful storytelling and media. And if you can at least walk away with that, even if you don't like the show or the Miss Marvel stuff, I feel bad for you. So hopefully most of you are walking away with that, man, where it's like, I got to experience something that I'm either unfamiliar of, or, oh my gosh, man, it was so awesome to see myself, my community, where I come from, on screen and represented so well. So yeah, I want to know if you guys are feeling that stuff. So that means it's your turn. I'm shutting up. What did you love about the show? Was it the culture? Was it the Miss Marvel story? Did you like the new adaptation and the change to her powers? Like I said, giving her this light energy-based kind of vibe is something that I think works in the MCU. So does it work for you? Did you enjoy the cast? Did you enjoy the story, the Miss Marvel stuff, the community, and the cultural stuff? Or were you not here for that? Anything you got, man, good, bad, indifferent on Miss Marvel goes down below in the comments section. Look forward to talking to you guys down there. As always, if you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up. And if you're new, you want to come hang out with the C-Man anytime we're talking movies, TV, trailer reactions, you want to be here as we lead to the Marvels. Like I said, this show leaves you in a place where I am so excited and fascinated for that movie. Like, I can't wait to see what we get there, and I just can't wait to see little more Iman Vellani. She's so damn good. So you want to be here as we work our way that way. We got She-Hulk dropping in less than 24 hours in the wee hours of the morning. All sorts of good things are coming. You want to be here for it. You want to show a little love and support to this wacky old guy? Well, hey, I got an idea. Why don't you come join C-Maniac Nation? Super easy. All you got to do, jump over there, man. Hit the subscribe button. Hit that little bell if you want those alerts so you know when them videos are coming. Until next time, for the C-Man's Cinema Sitdown, I've been the C-Man. I'm signing off. Peace.
Oh, hey, what's going on? You must be sticking around because you're looking for more content featuring this guy. Well, guess what? You're in the right place. You can check out more videos right here and right here. And if you have and you want to come join that C-Maniac Nation, you can hit that subscribe right over there.